Dr. Sarah Chun stared at the readouts on her screen and frowned. Something was wrong with the biological scanners, or at least she hoped something was wrong with them. The alternative didn't make sense. "Run it again," she said to her assistant, Marcus Webb. "There has to be an error." Marcus tapped at his console aboard the human diplomatic vessel Indomitable. They had been in orbit around the Coalition's capital world for 3 days now, conducting standard compatibility tests. Humanity had only just invented faster-than-light travel 2 years ago. And joining the Galactic Coalition required proving that human biology could interface with galactic technology. "Same results," Marcus said. He was a former military officer, calm and measured, even when confused. "Our neurological patterns are definitely unusual." The door to the medical bay slid open. Krelther entered, his forearms carrying various scanning devices. The alien scientist resembled a large mantis with compound eyes that reflected the room's lights in fractured rainbows. He had been assigned as their liaison, helping them understand Coalition medical standards. "Dr. Chen," Krelther said in his clicking, translated voice, "we need to discuss your test results." Sarah exchanged a glance with Marcus. "We were just reviewing them. The scanners show some anomalies in our stress response patterns." "Anomalies," Krelther repeated. He set down his equipment with careful precision. "Dr. Chun, your species has what we would classify as a severe biological disorder. I am sorry to be the one to tell you this." Sarah felt her stomach drop. "A disorder? What kind of disorder?" Krelther's translator took a moment to process his words. "Your fear response is inverted. When your species encounters threatening stimuli, your bodies release chemicals that increase performance rather than initiating protective shutdown. This is extremely dangerous." Marcus stood up from his console. "Protective shutdown? What does that mean?" "In all Coalition species, fear triggers an immediate cessation of higher functions," Krelther explained. "The body paralyzes, the mind empties, and emergency hormones signal for rescue or medical intervention. This is normal. This is safe. Your species does the opposite." Sarah tried to process this information. "You're saying that when you get scared, you just stop?" "Of course," Krelther said. "Fear indicates immediate mortal danger. The only logical response is complete stillness while the threat passes or until help arrives. Your readings show that fear makes you move faster, think quicker, and push your bodies beyond normal limits. This is a fatal flaw in your evolution. But humans have survived for millions of years with this response," Sarah said. "It's not a flaw. It's how we've always worked." Krelther's mandibles clicked in what might have been concern. "I have sent these findings to the High Council. They will need to evaluate whether humans can safely join the Coalition. Species with compromised fear responses are dangerous to themselves and potentially others." After Krelther left, Sarah and Marcus sat in silence. Finally, Marcus spoke. "He thinks we're defective. The whole galaxy thinks fear should shut you down," Sarah said. "To them, our fight-or-flight response is backwards." "Do we tell Earth?" Sarah nodded slowly. "We have to. The Council might quarantine us." The next day, Sarah was summoned before the High Council. The chamber was vast, with representatives from 40 different species arranged in a circular amphitheater. She stood in the center, feeling very small and very alone. The council speaker was a floating, jellyfish-like creature named Varantis. Its voice came from a translator orb that drifted beside it. "Dr. Chun, we have reviewed the medical findings. Your species presents an unprecedented challenge." "We mean no harm," Sarah said. "Humans have coexisted peacefully for thousands of years despite our fear response." "That is what troubles us," Varantis replied. "You have built weapons, explored dangerous environments, and engaged in warfare. all while experiencing fear that should have stopped these activities entirely. We do not understand how you function. A representative from a species called the Valorian stood up. They looked almost human, but with silver skin and large, dark eyes. I have studied human history as provided in your application materials. Your soldiers train specifically to experience fear in combat. This is madness. Marcus, who had been allowed to attend as a witness, stepped forward. May I speak? Varantis considered, then agreed. I served in the Earth Defense Force for 15 years, Marcus said. Yes, we train with fear. We learn to recognize it, to understand it, and to use it. Fear makes us careful. It makes us check our equipment twice. It makes us aware of danger so we can respond to it. Without fear, we would be reckless. Without fear, you would be safe, the Valorian countered. Fear is meant to stop action, not encourage it. Then how do your soldiers fight? Marcus asked that the Valorian looked confused. We do not have soldiers. When threatened, we signal for peacekeeping forces who respond once the danger has passed. Fighting while afraid is impossible. Sarah began to understand the depth of the divide. So when your species encounters danger, everyone just freezes? It is the natural order, Varantis said. Threats are managed by automated systems or by specialists who have been medicated to suppress their fear response temporarily. The idea of functioning while afraid is alien to us. The discussion continued for hours. Some council members argued for quarantine. Others suggested mandatory medication to suppress human fear responses. A few, like Krolther, who had joined the session, argued for patience and further study. Finally, as the session was about to adjourn, an alarm began to sound throughout the chamber. Varantis' orb flashed red. Emergency signal. There is an attack on the outer colonies. Screens around the chamber lit up with incoming data. Sarah watched as reports flooded in. A species called the Draketh had attacked 3 mining colonies simultaneously. The descriptions were horrifying. The Draketh used some kind of psychic weapon that amplified fear to unbearable levels. All defenders shut down immediately, a military coordinator reported via hologram. No resistance was possible. The colonists are being harvested. Harvested? Sarah asked quietly. Krolther turned to her, his compound eyes reflecting genuine terror despite his calm posture. The Draketh are hunters. They evolved to paralyze prey with fear, then consume them. They have avoided coalition space for centuries, but something has changed. The council chamber erupted into chaos. Representatives from species near the frontier began demanding immediate evacuation protocols. Military commanders appeared on screens, but even they looked shaken. We cannot fight the Draketh, Varantis announced. Their presence alone is enough to trigger complete shutdown. We must evacuate all frontier worlds. Sarah looked at Marcus. He met her eyes, and she saw the same thought reflected there. If fear paralyzed every species in the galaxy except humans, then the Draketh had never encountered real resistance. Council Speaker, Sarah said loudly enough to cut through the noise. Humanity would like to offer assistance. The chamber fell silent. Varantis turned its translucent body toward her. Dr. Chun, you do not understand. The Draketh fear weapon would be lethal to your species with your compromised response. You would experience fear beyond measure. Yes, Sarah said. We would. But we wouldn't stop. For the first time since entering the chamber, she saw something new in the eyes of the alien representatives. It wasn't just confusion or concern. It was hope, fragile and uncertain, but hope nonetheless. Varantis floated lower. You believe humans could face the Draketh and continue to function? I believe humans have faced fear every day of our existence, Sarah said. And we're still here. The Council voted to allow a human reconnaissance mission to the nearest attacked colony. It was a test, Sarah knew, and not just of human capabilities. It was a test of whether humanity's greatest perceived weakness might actually be a strength that could save them all. Admiral James Okonkwo studied the tactical display with practiced calm. The Indomitable and her two escort frigates, the Defiant and the Ranger, moved through dark space toward the mining colony of Zadar 7. Behind them, at a safe distance, a coalition observation ship monitored everything. "How are the crews holding up?" he asked Marcus, who had been appointed as his tactical coordinator. "Nervous," Marcus admitted, "but ready." Everyone volunteered for this. Sarah entered the bridge, carrying her medical scanner. She had spent the past 3 days monitoring the crew's biological responses, trying to establish baselines before they encountered the Draketh. "Admiral, I need to brief you on what we might experience." Okonkwo gestured for her to continue. "Based on coalition data, the Draketh emit a psychic frequency that triggers the deepest, most primal fear response. For other species, it's immediate shutdown. For us," she paused, "for us, it will feel like every nightmare we've ever had made real. Our bodies will flood with adrenaline. Our hearts will race. We'll feel genuine terror. But we'll keep functioning," Okonkwo said. "That's what we're here to prove." The communication console chirped. Krelther's face appeared on screen from the observation ship. "Human vessels, you are approaching the Draketh detection range. I must urge caution. No species has ever survived direct contact with their fear weapon." "Noted," Okonkwo said. "We'll proceed carefully." "I do not think you understand," Krelther insisted. "Careful will not matter. The fear will find you regardless." Sarah stepped closer to the screen. "Krelther, have the Draketh ever faced prey that didn't freeze?" The alien scientist was quiet for a moment. "No, there are no records of any resistance." "Then maybe it's time they did." As they crossed into the system, the sensors picked up debris fields and distress beacons. The mining colony had been located on a large asteroid, and the Draketh had torn it apart. Several coalition vessels drifted in space, their crews still alive but completely unresponsive, locked in fear-induced paralysis. "Contact," the sensor operator called out. 3 Draketh raiders, approaching from the asteroid belt. Okonkwo straightened in his command chair. "Battle stations. All crews, prepare for contact." Sarah felt it before the sensors registered the psychic attack. A wave of wrongness washed over her, and suddenly her body was screaming danger. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Her hands began to shake. Every instinct told her to run, to hide, to shut down. Around the bridge, she heard gasps and sharp intakes of breath. The tactical officer gripped his console with white knuckles. The helmsman's breathing became rapid and shallow, but nobody stopped. Nobody froze. "My God," whispered the communications officer. "Is this what they feel?" "Steady." Okonkwo's voice cut through the rising panic. He sounded shaken but firm. "I know you're scared. I'm scared too." "That's good. It means we're alert. Use it." Sarah forced herself to breathe slowly, the way she had learned in her emergency training back on Earth. The fear didn't go away, but it shifted. Her shaking hands became steady. Her racing heart pumped energy to her muscles and brain. The terror transformed into sharp, crystal-clear focus. "Draketh vessels are closing," Marcus reported. His voice was tight but controlled. "They're not trying to evade. They're approaching directly." On the screen, Sarah saw them. The Draketh ships were organic-looking, like massive predatory fish made of dark chitin and glowing red lights. They moved with the confidence of creatures that had never known defeat. "Weapons ready," Okonkwo ordered. "Wait for my command." The fear pressure increased. Sarah felt her vision narrow, her body preparing for fight or flight. Around her, the bridge crew moved with jerky, adrenaline-fueled precision. They were terrified, but they were functioning. The Draketh ship slowed. From the observation ship, Krelther's voice came through, full of wonder. They're confused. Their prey is still moving. Then let's give them something to really think about, Okonkwo said. All ships engage. The Indomitable's railguns opened fire. The Defiant and Rangers swept in from the flanks, their missile pods launching in coordinated volleys. The Draketh raiders, expecting paralyzed targets, suddenly faced incoming fire from 3 directions. Sarah watched on the tactical display as one of the Draketh ships took multiple hits. Its shields flared and died. The ship began to vent atmosphere. They're trying to increase the fear pressure, Sarah said, reading her medical scanner. Everyone's stress hormones are spiking. I can feel it, Marcus said through gritted teeth. It's like drowning in panic. But the human ships kept firing, kept maneuvering, kept fighting. The Draketh, for the first time in their species' history, retreated. Their remaining 2 ships broke off, moving away at high speed. The bridge crew erupted in shaky cheers. Okonkwo didn't smile. Status report. All ships check in. The reports came in. Minor damage to the Ranger, no casualties, all crew shaken but operational. Sarah's hands were still trembling from the adrenaline, but she felt a strange sense of accomplishment. That was the most terrifying thing I've ever experienced, the helmsman said. And you flew us right through it, Okonkwo replied. Well done. Krelther's voice came through the communication system, and for once, his translator seemed to struggle with conveying his emotion. Impossible. You should all be catatonic. The fear pressure was at lethal levels. We felt it, Sarah said. Trust me, we felt every bit of it. But you continued to function. You fought. You won. Krelther paused. The Draketh have never retreated before. Over the next few hours, they rescued the paralyzed crews from the coalition ships. The aliens were slowly coming out of their fear-induced shutdown, confused and traumatized. When they learned that the humans had driven off the Draketh, their reactions ranged from disbelief to awe. Back on the observation ship, Sarah met with Krelther in person. The alien scientist had been running his own scans during the battle. I do not understand your species, he admitted. By every measure, you should have been the first to fall. The fear you experienced was genuine. Your bodies were in extreme distress. Yet you adapted within moments. We didn't adapt, Sarah corrected. We're built this way. Humans have been scared since we lived in caves, afraid of the dark and what might be hiding in it. We learned to pick up a torch and walk into that darkness anyway. Remarkable, Krelther said. And troubling? Troubling? The Draketh do not forget, he said. They do not forgive. You have done something no species has ever done. You hurt them. You drove them away. They will want to understand why. Let them come, Sarah said with more confidence than she felt. We'll be ready. But even as she said it, long-range sensors began picking up new signals. The Draketh weren't retreating from coalition space. They were regrouping. And according to the data streaming in, they weren't just sending raiders anymore. They were sending their main fleet. Admiral Okonkwo received the report on the bridge and felt his blood run cold. Hundreds of Draketh ships, all converging on one target. They had changed course away from other coalition worlds. They were heading toward Earth. They found our homeworld, Marcus said quietly. Sarah arrived on the bridge moments later, her face pale. The coalition is sending emergency communications. They're offering evacuation ships. They want us to abandon Earth before the Draketh arrive. Okonkwo looked at the star map, at the blinking icon that represented humanity's home. He thought of the billions of people there, going about their lives, unaware that an army of nightmares was coming for them. Send the message to Earth, he said. Tell them what's coming. Tell them we're on our way. And the Coalition's offer? Sarah asked. Tell them thank you, but humans don't run. He turned to his crew, seeing the fear in their eyes and the determination underneath it. We're going home. And we're going to show the Draketh what happens when you threaten humanity. The crew moved to their stations without hesitation. The Indomitable turned toward Earth, racing against time to reach home before the storm arrived. Behind them, the Coalition observation ship sent urgent messages back to the High Council. For the first time in galactic history, a species was choosing to face the Draketh in open battle. The Council didn't know whether to admire humanity's courage or mourn their inevitable destruction. But Sarah, standing on the bridge as stars blurred past, felt something the Council couldn't understand. Yes, she was afraid. Terrified, even. But fear had always been humanity's companion, and they had learned long ago that the only way out was through. Earth had 3 weeks to prepare. It wasn't enough time, but humanity had never been good at accepting defeat without a fight. Sarah stood in the Earth Defense Command Center, watching the organized chaos around her. Military officers coordinated with civilian governments. Evacuation plans were drawn up for non-essential personnel, though few chose to leave. Engineers worked around the clock to retrofit every available ship with weapons. The Council thinks we're insane, Marcus said, joining her at the observation window. Below them, the sprawling military complex hummed with activity. They offered to take refugees, Sarah replied. 23 species volunteered ships to help evacuate Earth. That's something. But they won't fight with us. Can you blame them? Sarah turned to face him. We've seen what the Draketh fear weapon does to them. They literally can't function in its presence. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Krelther volunteered to stay. He and a few other scientists. They want to document what happens. Document our last stand, you mean? Maybe, Marcus admitted. Or maybe they want to see if we can actually pull this off. The door to the command center slid open, and Admiral Okonkwo entered with a woman Sarah didn't recognize. She was older, with steel-gray hair and sharp eyes. Dr. Chun, Commander Webb, Okonkwo said. This is General Patricia Reeves. She's been coordinating Earth's defense strategy. Reeves shook their hands with a grip that could crush stone. I've read your reports from the Zadar encounter. The Draketh fear weapon makes you feel like you're dying? Worse, Sarah said. It feels like dying would be a relief. Every nightmare, every phobia, every moment of terror you've ever suppressed comes flooding back at once. But you can fight through it. We did before, Marcus said. Against 3 ships. This time, we're facing hundreds. Reeves nodded grimly. Then we'll need every advantage we can get. Dr. Chun, I want you working with our military psychologists. If fear is going to be our battlefield, we need to understand it better than the enemy does. Over the next 2 weeks, Sarah worked with soldiers, pilots, and ship crews. They ran simulations, practiced breathing techniques, and developed protocols for maintaining function under extreme fear. It wasn't about eliminating the fear, she taught them. It was about channeling it. Fear makes you careful, she told a group of fighter pilots. It makes you check your instruments twice. It keeps you alive. The Draketh have spent millions of years hunting prey that freezes. They don't know how to fight prey that uses fear as fuel. Meanwhile, humanity prepared its defenses. The orbital platforms around Earth bristled with weapons. The lunar base became a fortress. Every ship that could fly and fight was pressed into service. From military destroyers to retrofitted mining vessels, Krelther set up observation equipment on the lunar base. Though he insisted on staying in a reinforced bunker, Sarah visited him 3 days before the Draketh were scheduled to arrive. You should evacuate, she told him. I am a scientist, Krelther replied. This is the most significant event in galactic history. If humans can face the Dracath, it changes everything we understand about fear, about evolution, about survival itself. And if we can't? Then I will have died pursuing knowledge, he said simply. Besides, your species has taught me something. Running from fear does not make you safe. It only ensures you die tired. On the day the Dracath arrived, Sarah was on the command deck of the Indomitable, now integrated into Earth's defense fleet. The enemy appeared at the edge of the solar system, their ships blotting out the stars. 573 vessels, the sensor operator reported. Confirmed Dracath battle configuration. The fear hit them like a physical wave. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. Around her, she heard gasps and choked sounds. The terror was overwhelming, a primal scream in the back of her mind that demanded she curl up and surrender. But she had trained for this. She breathed through it, letting the adrenaline sharpen her focus instead of paralyzing her. Around the bridge, others did the same. It wasn't easy. Sweat beaded on foreheads. Hands gripped consoles with white-knuckled intensity. But nobody froze. All ships report ready, Marcus said, his voice strained but steady. Ground defenses are locked on. Admiral Okonkwo stood at the center of the bridge, and Sarah could see the fear in his eyes. But she could also see the determination that ran deeper. This is Admiral Okonkwo to all human forces. I know you're scared. I'm scared too. But we're humans. We've been scared before, and we're still here. Today we show the galaxy that fear doesn't own us. We own it. All ships engage at will. The Dracath fleet swept toward Earth like a dark tide. Their fear weapon intensified with every passing moment, building to levels that should have been lethal. Sarah watched her scanner as the readings went off the chart. Every human in the fleet was experiencing terror beyond measure, and yet they fought. The orbital platforms opened fire first, their railguns and missiles creating a wall of destruction. The Dracath pushed through, taking losses but continuing forward. Then the fleet engaged, human ships darting between the larger Dracath vessels like wolves harrying a bear. The battle was chaos. Sarah watched the tactical display through tear-blurred eyes, her body shaking from the constant adrenaline. Ships exploded on both sides. The Dracath were powerful and numerous, but they had never faced an enemy that fought back effectively under their fear weapon. They're trying to break through to the planet. Marcus shouted over the alarms. Earth defense grid is firing, another officer reported. The lunar base unleashed everything it had. Ground-based weapons from Earth joined in. The sky lit up with fire and destruction. The Dracath kept coming, but they were slower now, more cautious. Their prey was supposed to be helpless, but instead it was tearing them apart. In the thick of battle, something remarkable happened. The human crews began to adapt. Fighter pilots who had been shaking with fear found their rhythm. Ship commanders who had been fighting through panic started anticipating enemy movements. The terror was still there, but it was being processed, understood, converted into energy and focus. Sarah watched her medical scanners and saw something the galaxy had never witnessed. An entire species, experiencing maximum fear, was becoming more effective because of it. The Dracath are falling back, a sensor operator called out in disbelief. On the screen, the enemy fleet was breaking formation. Not all of them, not yet, but the cracks were showing. Ships that had pushed forward were pulling back. The Dracath, for the second time, were experiencing doubt. Press the advantage, Okonkwo ordered. Don't let them regroup. The human fleet surged forward. The Defiant and a squadron of fighters broke through the Dracath line, targeting what appeared to be a command vessel. The massive ship tried to maneuver, but human weapons found their mark. It exploded in a brilliant flash. That was the turning point. The Dracath fleet, their command structure damaged and facing an enemy that refused to be victims, began a full retreat. They scattered, jumping to faster than light as soon as they cleared the gravity well. The silence that followed was deafening. For a long moment, nobody on the bridge moved. Then someone started laughing, a sound halfway between relief and hysteria. It spread through the crew like wildfire. "We did it," Marcus said, as if he couldn't quite believe it. "We actually did it." Sarah collapsed into her chair, her body finally acknowledging the toll of maintaining function under extreme fear for hours. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking, but she was smiling. Around Earth, ships were battered and smoking, but they were intact. The planet was safe. From the lunar base, Krelther's message came through. Impossible, magnificent. Impossible and magnificent. His translator seemed to be struggling with his excitement. "Dr. Chun, the council must hear of this. You must address them." 3 days later, Sarah stood before the High Council again. This time, the chamber was packed. Representatives from species across the galaxy had come to hear about Earth's defense. Varantis floated at the center. "Dr. Chun, we have reviewed the battle data. Your species faced fear levels that should have been instantly fatal. You sustained it for hours. You not only survived, but won. How is this possible?" Sarah thought about her answer carefully. "Fear isn't our weakness. It's our heritage. Every human alive descends from ancestors who felt fear and pushed through it anyway. We're afraid of heights, so we built airplanes. We're afraid of the ocean, so we built ships. We're afraid of the dark, so we invented fire. Fear doesn't stop us. It motivates us. It makes us prepare, makes us careful, makes us strong. But how do you endure it?" asked the Valorian representative. "How do you not shut down?" "Because shutting down means death," Sarah said simply. "On Earth, our ancestors who froze when afraid got eaten. The ones who ran or fought survived. We evolved not to escape fear, but to use it." The council chamber was silent for a long moment. Then Krelther stood. "I propose that humanity be granted full membership in the coalition immediately, with special designation as fear response specialists. They possess a capability no other species has. They can face threats we cannot." The vote was unanimous. That evening, Sarah stood on an observation deck on the coalition station, looking out at Earth in the distance. Marcus joined her, carrying 2 glasses of something that approximated wine.